We're fearlessly talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to Connecticut.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Little Sunday night edition, Air Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Air Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. How about this? 2 weeks from today, we will have college football to react to. That is right. One more weekend without college football. Week 0, 2 weeks from today. But with that said, we still got ourselves a jam-packed show in the lead up to the season. We're going to open what I believe to be the only teams that can win the national championship. How many are there? The national championship tier. From there, we'll talk about that interesting little story that blew up everybody's timeline over the weekend. Jon Gruden saying he wants to coach college football. Is he coming to the SEC? We'll discuss that. Jimbo Fisher wants back in, but does anybody want him? And, oh, by the way, we'll wrap. Listen, we don't do a ton of NFL. Shedeur Sanders was the story of the weekend. Say that 10 times fast, and we will get to that before we get out of here. Before we get started, listen, you know the drill by now. Make sure that you're subscribed to the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel here on YouTube. We're closing in on 59,000 subscribers. We so very much appreciate your support. We need you to tell a friend, tag a friend, whatever. I think we're doing as good a college sports content as there is out there. Plenty of basketball, by the way, as stuff kind of gets closer to basketball season. So make sure you're subscribed. You can also subscribe on Apple and Spotify as well. You can see the Apple link in the chat. Also should mention, host Fox Sports Radio every Saturday night. So do me a favor, just search Fox Sports Radio Weekends. You can get my podcast there as well. With that said, it is a Sunday night here in August. College football, we're so close. There is no more time to waste, so let's get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day, listen, college football, what did I just say? 2 weeks from today, this sounds crazy. 2 weeks from today, we'll have games to react. Now, the week 0 slate isn't the most loaded slate, but Iowa State, Kansas State, AP poll drops Monday. I expect that to be a top 25 matchup. But I bring it up because as we ramp up, what I want to do is a segment that I always do during basketball season, but thought it would be fun to discuss for football season. And that is what I believe to be the national championship tier in college football. The only teams that can win the national championship. I've got 8. We're going to get into them in a minute. Before we do that, I just want to explain very simply my criteria. And I only have one criteria. It is that at minimum, you are going to have to beat 3 elite teams to compete to win a national championship, okay? And I'm not trying to give away my list, but you're going to have to beat 3 games in a row. Penn State, Georgia, Texas. Texas, Penn State, Ohio State. Ohio State, Texas, Georgia. I mean, you're going to have to beat 3 straight really good teams. And so if you cannot do that, I can't put you in that tier. And so I believe coming into this season, there are 8 teams that are good enough to win the national championship. Let's dive in. Let's start with number 1. Now, listen, they weren't number 1 in the AP or the coaches poll, excuse me. I believe this is the program, without a doubt, with the most pressure in college football. And I would argue probably only one of 2 that truly has national title or bust expectations. It's the Penn State Nittany Lions. Okay, so bottom line with Penn State, we know the deal by now. James Franklin has not gotten it done in big spots, not gotten it done against elite teams. I think it's worth noting what they finished 12-3 last year, 3 losses, Ohio State, Oregon, and Notre Dame. There's nothing to be ashamed about that, to be clear. But at some point, you got to break through. And I think what makes Penn State different, as we've discussed throughout the summer and all your favorite college football podcasts have discussed as well, is like the bottom line with Penn State is everybody else lost major swaths of talent, even Ohio State, even whoever. Penn State, outside of Abdul Carter, basically brings back everybody. Drew Aller, this is now his 3rd year as a starter. It's now or never. 2,000-yard backs in Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen. The portal, I thought very aggressive in the portal, going and getting two very good wide receivers, Kyron Hudson and, of course, Trebor Pena from Penn State. The O-line returns 4 starters. The defense has been elite. And as importantly, James Franklin kind of pushed all the chips in the middle with his coaching staff as well. They got the offensive coordinator signed to a long-term deal before the season even ended, Andy Kolonicki. And then, remember, who's their defensive coordinator? Jim Knowles. Jim Knowles is their defensive coordinator. And so to me, they are in the national championship tier. They have to prove it. And listen, if they win a title, it doesn't really matter. But I think in the regular season, you kind of got to win one of these meaningful games, right? Oregon at home, night game. Ohio State on the road. That'll probably be big noon. You can't just sneak in as a 7 seed at 10-2 with no notable wins. It's time, Penn State. It's put up or shut up. I think it's natty or bust. At the very least, you got to get to that title game. And I think more importantly, you got to get some meaningful regular season wins. Penn State, number 1 in my list of teams that can absolutely win it all. Now it's time for them to do it. Number 2 on the list of teams that I believe can win a national championship, the only other team that I would say even has pseudo-national title or bust vibes coming out of them, Texas Longhorns. Listen, with Texas, I don't think the pressure is quite as high as at Penn State, because the bottom line is, one, I think Texas fans, I don't want to speak for them, I think they sort of understand, hey, we had it really bad for a while. Sark knows what he's doing. Yes, at some point he's got to get over the hump. But I think the other thing is we're already getting buzz that Arch Manning is going to be probably another year at Texas unless things go unbelievably, right? So I think you can already spin it to next year's really the year. But I bring it up because obviously if you're a Texas fan, you're not saying that. But listen, I think when you look at Texas, year 1 in the SEC was a success. You get to the semifinals of the college football playoff. You get to the SEC title game. Now it's, can you take the next step? Arch Manning is obviously the biggest question mark, the most interesting part of that team. I'm not sold that he's the best player in college football, the Heisman Trophy favorite, whatever. It's great you beat UL Monroe, you beat Mississippi State. Now you got to do it in big boy games. Like I said, you're going to have to go through Georgia and Ohio State. You're going to have to go through Ohio State and Penn State, whoever, to win a national championship. Good news is he doesn't have to do it alone. Plenty of talent at the wide receiver spot. I'll say this for Texas's defense. We think of Sark as an offensive guy. Go back to last year. That was a defense and run game team. He clearly did not trust Quinn Ewers. So defense is going to be elite. I think Anthony Hill, Colin Simmons are 2 guys that frankly would have been first-round picks last year if they were draft eligible. They were not. Does not matter. Texas, absolutely a national title contender. Let's get to number 3, team I just talked about. Let me ask you guys this. Anyone else feel like Georgia, it's been a quiet offseason for Georgia? And I don't mean that in a negative way, but it's like, Penn State, natty or bust, Texas, Arch Manning, Alabama, Kalen DeBoer. What do we expect from year 2? And it's like, I don't really feel like anybody's talking about Georgia. You win the SEC last year. You go through a gauntlet, which includes Alabama on the road, Texas on the road, etc. And I think this team actually in 2025 might be better built to win the national championship even after winning the SEC last year. Yes, you have a first-year starter in Gunnar Stockton. But listen, I keep saying this. Outside of a last name, what's the difference between Gunnar Stockton and Arch Manning? There's really nothing. And in Gunnar Stockton's defense, he actually looked really good against Texas when he got thrown into the fire in the SEC championship game last year. So I can't say he has more experience than Arch Manning, but he's won games that matter. And then on top of it, the wide receiver core should be much better. I think that's the most interesting thing to me. It's easy to forget with Georgia. Those wide receiver drops last year, it was a disaster. Well, they add Zachariah Branch from USC. They add Noah Thomas from Texas A&M. I think that wide receiver group is going to be much better. The defense is always going to be elite under Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann. I think the other thing I would add with Georgia, too, you can't say the schedule is easy. Georgia fans, I'm not saying that. The counter to that is Ole Miss, Alabama, Texas, all at home this year after playing them on the road. A year ago, I think you could argue toughest road game probably at Tennessee will be Gunnar Stockton's first career road start. Counter to that is it'll be Joey Aguilar's first SEC start as well. I like Georgia. I think they're a little bit undervalued. I have them at number 3. Number 4, listen, we've already talked about them. We've done 2-3 segments on them, so I'll be quick here. Most fascinating team in college football to me, maybe the Clemson Tigers. And we've done the spiel on Dabo. We all doubted him. We all questioned the portal decision, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't want to take players out of the portal. He's looking like he was right, and a lot of people were wrong because Clemson's coming off that playoff appearance. By the way, it's easy to forget this with Clemson. They moved that ball up and down the field at Texas in the playoff. Because we did the Clemson segment last week, and I had people saying, Cade Klubnik would be the 5th best quarterback in the SEC. I'm like, Cade Klubnik moved the ball better against Texas than anybody in the SEC did. So stop. Cade Klubnik, I've said it a million times already this fall. I think he's going to make Garrett, we're going to go into that week 1 game, LSU Clemson, talking about Garrett Nussmeier. We're going to come out talking Cade Klubnik, 3rd-year starter in that system, 3 really good wide receivers. That defense is insane, by the way. They don't necessarily have the depth of some of these other schools, but I don't think most people have depth these days because of the transfer portal. And so I just look at them. I think the other thing, too, they should be in good position to get a top 4 seed and an auto bye into the quarterfinals of the college football playoff. Schedule, I think, is probably a little bit tougher than people think. But LSU at home, the ACC games that matter at Louisville. Obviously, you got Florida State. We'll see if they're any good this year. And SMU at home. You do close at South Carolina. That might be actually your toughest game. I just bring it up. This team feels like 11-1 in the regular season, ACC champ, top 4 seed. I really like Clemson. I really do. We got to give Dabo credit where it's due about how he went ahead and stuck to his principles, because I think he, again, for the first time in probably about 4 or 5 years, has a team good enough to win the national championship. Number 5. This is an interesting one, not because they don't belong in this tier. I just don't feel like people are talking about them. The Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, I just said this with Georgia. I get the notion. Was I supposed to do Ohio State here, Matt? I forget. I apologize. I think Alabama was the next team I gave you. But bottom line with Alabama, I know I just said in the Georgia part, people are talking about Alabama from the Kalen DeBoer. Is he really built for Bama, this and that? I only bring it up because the counter is I don't think people realize like how good Bama has the chance to be this year. And I think it's a lot of negativity coming out of the year 1 of the Kalen DeBoer era. I think people that are around that program every day are fired up and truly believe how good this team can be. And by the way, Alabama fans, if you're watching this, when I say negativity, I'm not talking about you guys. I'm talking about on a national scale, DeBoer, they lost it, whatever. So Alabama fans are fired up. I think they know how good this team can be. And I think what's easy to forget about this team a year ago is a few things. First off, and I've heard multiple players talk about this, both at SEC media days as well as media availability, is that they are really just like, bottom line, everybody's rowing in the same direction. And it seems like a year ago, I think there were a lot of guys, and I don't even blame them, but Nick Saban leaves in the middle of January. You don't want to transfer. Maybe you're a junior. Maybe you're a senior. Maybe you just want to finish out your career at Bama. But was everybody really bought in to Kalen DeBoer? Well, this year, you've had 4 transfer portal cycles to leave if you didn't believe in what Kalen DeBoer was doing. So the guys that are there, I think, are all going in the same direction. Ty Simpson isn't as naturally gifted as Jalen Milroe. I think he's going to be really good, especially like Ryan Grubb. Ryan Grubb has been Kalen DeBoer's right-hand man. The last time that they worked together, they had a Heisman Trophy finalist, a team that went 13-0 in the regular season, plus Pac-12 championship game, and played for a national championship. Don't know yet if I'm at national championship. Certainly don't think they're going to enter the playoff 13-0. But is that team good enough? Yes. The other thing, too, by the way, Bama, really quick, defense really struggled early. We all remember the Vandy game when they got Pavia'd. That defense was very good down the stretch. Look at the final 6-7 games. Really good. Alabama is in that tier. Number 6 on that list. Yeah, I kind of just gave it away a little bit, but it's the Ohio State Buckeyes. Listen, Ohio State really has lost a ton off last year's team. Not just Will Howard, both running backs, Judkins and Henderson, bunch of guys off the offensive line, bunch of guys off the defense. But a couple things stand out. One, and I truly believe this, any team that has Jeremiah Smith has a chance to win any game on their schedule because he is just such a matchup problem. And that wide receiver room is so deep that, like, whoever wins that starting quarterback job, They have so many weapons to throw to. By the way, really nice transfer tight end, Max Clare. And so I just bring it up because you got Jeremiah Smith, you're going to be able to put up points. And then defensively, you got Caleb Downs leading that defense, you're going to be just fine. So you look at Ohio State. The other thing, too, with Ohio State, I think the pressure's kind of off of them, right? I mean, you can say it didn't really matter until you lost to Michigan last year. I disagree. I felt like the whole season long, there was kind of some tension. It's a $20 million roster. This is how much they paid. It's natty or bust. You lose to Michigan, whatever. But now that they went ahead and won that national championship, I don't say they can play free and loose, but I do think, like, they know that they're capable of it. They don't have to second guess themselves, and they can just go out there and play ball. I think what's interesting about the schedule, certainly don't think you can call a schedule that opens with Texas at home easy, but 4 of the first 5 are at home. You don't play Oregon this year. You do play Penn State, but that's at home, a team that you've dominated. And then again, the school up north, it's a situation where, guess what? I know you haven't beaten them. The counter to that is, the pressure's kind of off. Like I said, the pressure to beat them is on, but the counter to that would be, like, you're not going to come in with the pressure that you have the last few years. So I actually think it's in play that Ohio State actually has a better win-loss record in the regular season than a year ago. I think they could go 11-1. I think if things break right, they could go 12-0. I don't know that I necessarily see that, but I really do think Ohio State is absolutely capable. I don't think that's a hot take at all. Final 2 teams, I think, are kind of the exact opposite to me, but I think they're probably the fringes of the tier that can win a national championship. Number 1, which is number 7 on this list, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So with Notre Dame, what's interesting about them is they lose some stuff off the national championship runner-up from a year ago, but they bring back quite a bit as well. And I think you could actually argue it is a more well-rounded team. Jeremiah Love, 1,000-yard rusher. Wide receiver room is deeper than ever. O-line is always really good. Defense is always really good. NFL dudes all over. The only thing that concerns me is that you are probably going to be starting a quarterback who basically has 0 experience. CJ Carr is expected to be the starter. CJ Carr has not thrown a college pass, has not taken a college snap. The other thing is, your 2 toughest games are probably in week 1 and week 3. So it's your first 2 games of the season. You get the early bye, but Miami at home Miami on the road, A&M at home in week 3. And the issue is with the inexperienced quarterback, if you lose those 2, what does it mean for the rest of the year? Schedule gets much easier from there. But if you go 0-2 in those games, are you going to have a resume by the end of the year that warrants being in the college football playoff? I think it's too early to tell. I think at 10-2 Notre Dame gets in. But I do think you probably have to split those games to feel really good. By the end of the year, I think they'll be fine. By the end of the year, whoever's the quarterback is going to have plenty of time to kind of develop. The other thing that's noteworthy about Notre Dame, remember a year ago, the setup of the college football playoff was that it was impossible for Notre Dame to get a top 4 seed. They go 11-1. If they go 12-0, they're probably getting a top 4 seed. So that's worth noting. I do have Notre Dame at number 7. The final team in my teams that I believe can win a national championship, it is the LSU Tigers. It is with a major caveat. I think LSU has the most boom-bust potential in all of college football, okay? Funny, I was on Dan Dockich's show the other day, and it was right after the coaches poll came out, and he said, of every team in the top 10, who do you believe is most likely to potentially maybe not have the season that they were expecting? And I said, it's LSU. And I think with LSU, let's be positive first, but I'll get to the negative. The positive is, if Garrett Nussmeier is as good as all the NFL draft experts think, then they have a chance to be special. The wide receiver group is better. A couple of really nice transfers. Barry Brown from Kentucky. A lot of our listeners are probably familiar with that name. Nick Anderson from Oklahoma. O-line has been revamped. The defense, in theory, should continue to get better. Remember 2 years ago when Jaden Daniels was the quarterback, that was one of the worst defenses in college football. Last year, they improved significantly. Can they make another big leap this year? That's the glasses half full side of things. The glasses half empty side is a few things. 1, is the defense going to improve? 2, and I've said this 100 times, I don't see it with Garrett Nussmeier. As the kids say, I think he's kind of mid. As other people will tell you, remember when Quinn Ewers was a first-round pick around this time last year? Remember when people were talking about Will Levis as a first-round pick as well? I solely bring it up because Garrett Nussmeier feels like this year's Will Levis or Quinn Ewers from the perspective of the guy that feels like he is going to – the people were talking about him as a first-round pick, a top number 1 overall pick. I just don't see it. So that's the negative. The other thing is the schedule. Yeah, as the dogs are in the background going crazy. I don't know if y'all can hear it, but we're dogs sitting right now. The dogs are going crazy. Anyway, back to Nussmeier, back to LSU. Schedule worries me. Listen, at Clemson in week 1, that's before the SEC schedule. And by the end of September, Florida at home at Ole Miss. You lose that Clemson game, your back is up against the wall, and you could, in theory, have essentially played yourself out of the playoff by the end of September. And I didn't even mention road game at Bama, road game at Oklahoma. Oh, by the way, home game against South Carolina, home game against A&M. So to me, I think that week 1 game against Clemson means much more to LSU than it probably does to Clemson. Although the counter is if you win that game, you're on easy street through the end of the year. So LSU has its opportunities, but we'll see if it works out. A couple other teams that were kind of on the cut line. I just don't think Oregon has enough this year. Oregon lost a ton off last year's team. Dante Moore is coming in. He did sit last year. He's going to have to make a big leap. Remember, their best wide receiver, Evan Stewart, got hurt in the summer, will not be available. I know they have DeCorian Moore, number 1 wide receiver in high school football. I think they can make the playoff. Can they beat Ohio State, Penn State, and Georgia? Ohio State, Bama, and Georgia. Georgia, Bama, and Penn State. I don't know that they can do that. I think they can be a playoff team. I think they can get an at-large. I think with the right breaks, maybe even win the Big Ten. I just don't know that they have enough to get those 3 straight wins, maybe 4 if necessary. I think Oregon is on the outside looking in, can make the playoff. I don't know if they can win it. Miami, 2 things. 1, Carson Beck, remember, is coming off major elbow surgery, did not throw for the entire spring. I'm not as down on Carson Beck as others, but that's a tough task. The other thing, do you trust Mario Cristobal to win 3 straight high-leverage games? Do you trust Mario Cristobal to beat, again, Penn State, Bama, and Georgia 3 games in a row, Georgia, Texas, and LSU 3 games in a row, LSU, Ohio State, and Georgia? I don't trust Mario Cristobal to do it. So outside of those teams, I don't even know who, Ole Miss has lost way too much. I don't think there's a national championship contender in the Big 12. Like SMU's nice out of the ACC. They're not winning 4 or 3 straight. So those are my 8 teams that I believe can win the national championship. We have, in order, at least the order that I put them in before the show, Penn State, Texas, Georgia, Clemson, Bama, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and LSU. Get in the chat. Tell me what I got right. Tell me what I got wrong. Tell me who I'm missing. But I'll tell you what, when we come back, we got some work to do here on this Aaron Torres pod, and here's why. That is because for the first time in a long time, baby, we got groomers. That's right. Jon Gruden, very publicly, basically begging for an SEC football job. We got to talk Jon Gruden, SEC head coach. Very interesting audio from the weekend. Quick break. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute. But before we do, I have so many people that reach out and say, Torres, you give me hours and hours and hours of free content every day, every month, every year. What can I do to help support the show? Well, you want to support the show and look good in the process. Make sure to check out and support the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Some of you wondering, what can I get in that merch store, Torres? Well, Kentucky fans, we got our Mark Pope Hope and Pope t-shirts. That is right. Mark Pope, monster first year. Year 2 is going to be even better. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirt at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is coming. It is here. John Calipari has things rocking. Get your Big Pig Invasion tees. Again, aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. St. John's fans, we have our Big Rick Energy t-shirts. And if you're just a college basketball fan in general, guess what? Your March is for Day Drinking shirt. That is the shirt that you need year-round, but especially for the next NCAA tournament. You can order yours now. By the way, football fans, we got you covered too. Auburn fans, we already know the freeze warning has hit the plains. Make sure to get your freeze warning t-shirts. Also, Nebraska fans, new era, new rules, the t-shirt that you need before the start of this coming season. And oh, by the way, if you're a Colorado fan, if you're just a Coach Prime fan, we have our Dion shirts and hats, more of them than we know what to do with. So to check out the full line of Aaron Torres Media merch and also support the show, good news is we're going to have even more for the fall. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And for more information, you can always reach out at Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. So tell you what, we got to get to some audio from the weekend. By the way, producer Matt, I don't know if you did that edit on the screen right now. It is unbelievable. We got to talk groomers, baby. That is right. So listen, for people who are a little new to the college football space, probably about 10 years, well, it was a little bit, but Jon Gruden. So Jon Gruden, remember, he won a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Bucks, is out of coaching for a while. And it felt like every 3 or 4 years, basically whenever Tennessee's coaching job opened, there were rumors that Jon Gruden would be interested, that Jon Gruden would take the job. We called them groomers at the time, okay? Well, I bring it up because obviously a couple things have changed. One, Tennessee certainly has the right coach in Josh Heupel. Two, Jon Gruden went back to the NFL. Now, he ended up getting fired. I thought it was nonsense, whatever. We don't have to get into it, but we talked about it at the time. When there are 10,000 emails available and the only ones who get leaked are Jon Gruden, I think somebody was kind of out to get him. But Gruden kind of last couple years was kind of keeping a low profile, probably again because he's suing the NFL. But over the last year, he's gotten back into the media with Barstool and really, I think, done an excellent job. I mean, I always say, like, I think Gruden is actually a born content creator who used to coach football, not a football coach who creates content. Like, I think the best thing that he does is create content. But I bring it up because in the midst of creating content, he has a YouTube channel with Barstool Sports in which he's doing a summer camp tour, basically, for lack of a better term. So he went to a bunch of NFL teams, Detroit Lions, etc. He also stopped by the Georgia Bulldogs the last couple days, okay? Bring it up because on Saturday, a video of his speech to the Georgia football team, this is a real video, surfaced. Here is Jon Gruden talking about what he'd like to do with the rest of his career. By the way, before we get to the video, Matt, should mention, there's some words that, you know, impressionable ears should be careful listening. If you're with a child or somebody who's impressionable, just be warned. Jon Gruden talking like a real football coach. I'm pretty sure we bleeped it out anyway. Producer Matt, go ahead, give us the sound.
The only reason I really came here is I want to coach again. I'm being honest with you. I do not either. I want to coach again. I'd die to coach in the SEC. I would love it. I would love it.
That was Jon Gruden. I believe the direct quote, and I'm paraphrasing because I'm not going to swear. The only reason I came here is because I want to coach again. I'll be honest with you. I do not BS either. I want to coach again. I die to coach in the SEC. I would love it. I would effing love it. Okay. So I think the key quote there that everyone has caught on to, and you can see it on the screen as producer Matt has put, I die to coach in the SEC. I would effing love it. So, of course, when that audio made its rounds over the last couple days, everybody's wondering, is Jon Gruden actually going to come to the SEC? And is there any school that should be interested in him? Well, I bring it up because, in my opinion, there is absolutely positively one school that I believe should make the call to Jon Gruden, a school that sort of has ties to him, definitely will probably almost certainly need a new head coach after this year. Yeah, I'm talking about the Arkansas Razorbacks. Hunter Yurachek, get on the phone. Call John Tyson, our friend here on the Aaron Torres pod. We love Tyson Chicken. They were very nice to reach out to us from the corporate headquarters over there. Let's get the Tyson people going. Let's get the Walmart people, and let's get Coach Gruden calling the Hogs. By the way, should mention, We do have our Torres on the Hogs account. Torres on the Hogs, all your late breaking Arkansas news. If you are an intern interested in helping us with that, reach out to me, Aaron Torres podcast questions at gmail.com. Aaron Torres podcast questions at gmail.com. All right. So Gruden, Arkansas. Let's make the call. Let me explain why this makes sense. First of all, let me say this. Gruden is, if given the opportunity, he wants to coach. It's not a secret. I've heard Dave Portnoy, obviously, who is his boss at Barstool Sports, basically acknowledge, like, yeah, we know we're not going to have him forever. We're enjoying having him. We're putting him to work. We're putting him on all our shows. But we know that we are not going to have him forever. So I believe that he absolutely, positively, unquestionably wants to coach again. That, to me, is not debatable. And I'll be honest, I do kind of feel like the NFL maybe kind of passed them by. It's almost like a Bill Belichick thing, and we'll get to Belichick in a second because I think there's some parallels there. But it's like a Belichick thing where it's like, he feels like he's from a different era. It feels like it's kind of run its course. But could this guy step onto a college campus and absolutely invigorate a fan base? Yes, I absolutely believe that he could. And so the questions become, where would he coach? Where would he be willing to coach? And here's the bottom line. He said the SEC. Listen, he is, even if he can't get back to the NFL, a competitor. He's going to want to compete at the highest level. The SEC is it. And the SEC, let's be transparent, there aren't a lot of jobs that are even possibly going to open anytime soon. I would probably put Arkansas at the top of the list. Outside of Arkansas, it's funny, there's so much chatter about some of these jobs, but it's like Oklahoma, oh, Brent Venables, this has to be the year. Brent Venables' buyout would be $35 million after this season if he were to be fired. Yeah, he's not getting fired. Mark Stoops has a massive buyout. Now, listen, I'm still of the belief, I think if Mark Stoops has another disastrous season, I know the famous quote at Kentucky is that, he's not giving up a dollar. I can't imagine him coming back to a place where he knows he's not wanted. So I would think Mark Stoops, that's a possibility, but he's got a huge buyout. Hugh Freeze has a $15 million buyout as well. I think, producer Matt, you might know this off the top of your head. I think Auburn is still paying a lot of money, or has at least, to Brian Harsin and Gus Malzahn. Now, both of them, ironically, are offensive coordinators now, but I just bring it up because they have spent a lot of money in buyout money. Producer Matt's all over it. Yes. He says Gus Malzahn's done. Brian Harsin's might be offset, of course, because he's got another head coaching job, but it's like, you got to pay $20 million to your player. The other thing with Auburn, really quick, this is a side tangent. I know everybody hates Hugh Freeze, but it's like his first recruiting class is only going into its sophomore year. And it's like, I don't know that you want to fire Hugh Freeze when Cam Coleman's about to be a junior next year, when all of their best players are going into their junior year, sophomore year, a year from now. So I don't think Hugh Freeze's seat is quite as hot. Now, you can't go 5-7 again this year. But if you fire Hugh Freeze, that whole roster is going into the portal, and there is some really talented players on that roster. So anyway, I think Hugh Freeze just get to a bowl game. I think he's staying. Arkansas is the one that I truly believe will open up, although I will say, and I know I'm going a lot of different directions, we had Curtis Wilkerson from Inside Arkansas on the show on Thursday, and he said he could see if you get to a bowl game, Sam Pittman being retained for another year. So we'll see what happens. But with the Arkansas thing, to me, it just makes too much sense, because at the end of the day, with Pittman, listen, he hasn't been terrible, but and as a matter of fact, 3 bowl games in the last 4 years? He obviously had that 9-win season in 2021. And I think Arkansas fans are grateful for him taking over when he did and elevating the program back to respectability. But I also think that program's kind of hit a brick wall. I don't think it's going to get significantly better this year, especially with the schedule. And I talked to Curtis a little bit about this on the show the other day, is that I don't know what the identity of that program is, right? Like, say what you want about Hugh Freeze. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But Hugh Freeze is like, we're all in on high school. We'll supplement through the portal if we need a guy. But our bread is going to be buttered in high school. Billy Napier, the same thing. Obviously, whatever. You get the point. Everybody's got an identity. Ole Miss is the portal team. But it's like, I don't know what Arkansas's identity is. You don't need me to go through the roster with you, Arkansas fans, but I don't know what the identity is. Sometimes you're really good on offense. Sometimes you're really good on defense. Sometimes you lose guys in the portal. I don't know what the program's identity is, but more importantly, and you guys know this, like there's no buzz with Sam Pittman. There's no excitement. And that's to me why you go get Jon Gruden if you can. Because think about the energy that Jon Gruden would bring to that campus and think about the energy that he would bring to that program. The dude is a walking viral machine, like I said. And I just think like you talk about a program that could just use that buzz, use that energy, use that excitement, use that interest. Jon Gruden would create it. Can you imagine, listen, all the great, people in the SEC, all the great personalities in the SEC, Jon Gruden walking into SEC media days a year from now? Yeah, that dude eclipsed Steve Sarkisian. That dude eclipsed Kirby Smart in terms of interest and the crowd around them. Yeah, I think Jon Gruden's probably got the biggest crowd, the most interest, and he creates so much interest in this program or in any program, but I'm just talking about this one specifically. Like I was thinking about it. Remember the story, about 3-4 months ago that HBO wanted to actually do Hard Knocks North Carolina football with Bill Belichick this year? Now, Bill Belichick's 23, 24-year-old girlfriend kiboshed that. You don't think they're going to be hitting up Gruden to do the same a year from now? And actually, that's where I think the parallel is. There's two parallels to me. One, I do think the first parallel is Bill Belichick. I think you could sit there and say, oh, Belichick, he's old, he's this, he's that. One, he has brought excitement to North Carolina. You cannot deny it. It is indisputable. Ticket sales have sold out. I don't know what the stat is for the first time in this many years or whatever, but there's all sorts of interest. He drew a huge crowd at ACC Media Days. I think North Carolina is going to be pretty good this year. I mean, the schedule kind of stinks. That's part of it, but I think North Carolina is going to be good. But the other parallel, you know what I think the actual other parallel is? It's when Arkansas hired John Calipari. Like, you go back to that moment in time. It's easy to forget now, but Eric Musselman leaves for USC as the basketball coach, and there's talk of, Bucky McMillan, Buzz Williams. I can't remember everybody. Will Wade. Hey, listen, I love Will Wade. Had him on the show many times. I love, Bucky McMillan. Sure, he's a great guy. But there was no one that would create the interest in your program quite like John Calipari. You have John Calipari. You are a national talking point every time you play and even when you don't. And it would absolutely be the same with Jon Gruden. A couple other thoughts. One, why Arkansas also makes sense. If you're worried about buyout money or whatever, guess what? If you're worried about buyout money, he ain't coming, you're not going to have to buy him out of a contract, whatever. Obviously, Sam Pittman's buyout changes based on how the schedule breaks. And then Arkansas fans, the ties to John Daly. As a matter of fact, it's kind of funny. I remember it must have been when we talked about Rhett Lashley a few weeks ago when we talked Rhett Lashley and somebody in the comments was like, forget Rhett Lashley. Jon Gruden is tight with John Daly. That's the guy that I want. And I kind of just rolled my eyes. Maybe the dudes or the chicks or whoever in the comment section know more than Torres does because that caught my eye and I was thinking about it this weekend. So if you're Arkansas, man, just go get this done. By the way, I hate to say it. I actually meant to pull a few tweets for you, Matt. It's on me that I forgot. I think the number one concern for Arkansas fans isn't would Jon Gruden be interested, but could Hunter Yurachek close? Now, Hunter Yurachek, I've never met. Seems like a nice guy. I think there's still a little bad blood from the last coaching search where they thought they had Lane Kiffin and then all of a sudden they didn't have Lane Kiffin. So I don't want to put any negative juju into the air, but Jon Gruden wants to coach in the SEC. I feel like this program has hit a wall, and I feel like you got to make that move. I'm excited thinking about it. First of all, I love the little graphic on the screen. It's great. Make the call, Hunter Yurachek. Make the call. What do I need to do to help? What do I need to do to get Jon Gruden in college football in Fayetteville? Do I need to make another return trip? What can I do to help you? And by the way, I'm not rooting against Sam Pittman. If Sam Pittman does, I just want to make that clear because everyone's going to be like, oh, wow, way to just throw Sam Pittman under the bus. Listen, happy for Sam Pittman. He got his surgery this offseason. He seems like he's got a lot more energy than he has in a while. And if he has a good season, then he deserves to keep the job. The counter is at Ole Miss, at Tennessee, at LSU, at Texas. I don't know. So listen, I'm rooting for Sam Pittman to do enough to keep the job. But if he cannot, I'm just saying, could do a lot worse than Jon Gruden. I'll say this. You know who you probably could do worse than? Jimbo Fisher. So Jimbo Fisher was also in the news this week. And I'm going to be super quick on this one. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on Jimbo. But Jimbo, producer Matt, you just pop up the tweet. I don't even know exactly what the exact quote was. But Jimbo Fisher was on some podcast, actually. By the way, Jimbo, you're always welcome to come on this one. But was asked about returning to coaching. He said, I would be very interested in still doing it because I think I've still got a lot to give. And I'd like to get back out there. I really would. Listen, I'm not rooting against Jimbo Fisher, just like I'm not rooting against, Sam Pittman here. But at the end of the day, with Jimbo Fisher, I don't know that there's a really long line, and I get it. He's won a national championship, all that. But the last couple of years, it's interesting. I was reading some of even just the comments on his quote or whatever, and it's like, dude, if you couldn't do it with the resources at A&M, what chance do you have at another school that doesn't have those resources? Now, I know he won a national championship a long time ago at Florida State. It was never really got going at A&M. And I don't know, man. Like, the offense is so, I think sometimes like the old school offense, we hear this in basketball all the time. Oh, we need a modern offense. I'm not enough of a scheme expert to know what Jimbo Fisher was and was not doing. What I do know was it looked old, antiquated, and easy to figure out. He had that one great year when Kellen Mond was a fourth-year starter during COVID. But other than that, listen, the A&M thing was a dud. So I don't really have much else to add. I thought, with the Gruden thing, it'd be at least worth acknowledging. Here's the other thing. Probably the power conference job that made the most sense for him opened last year. And it didn't feel like he was a candidate. It was West Virginia. He's from West Virginia. He's got ties to West Virginia. They seem to zero in on Rich Rod pretty early. Remember, Rich Rod is back as the West Virginia head coach. And I don't think Jimbo Fisher was a candidate there. So Jimbo, I wish him luck. By the way, all the Arkansas fans are going to say that's how somehow we're going to want Gruden and end up with Jimbo. I don't know. But I don't know that any fan base is clamoring to get, it's funny, right? Because a lot of these guys, they rehab their image, they whatever, even Lane Kiffin, went to Florida Atlantic, coached his you-know-what off, boom. When he gets hired in the SEC, there's excitement about him. I just think Jimbo, I guess in theory he could take a group of 5 job. Maybe he will. Dan Mullen's at UNLV right now, so maybe Jimbo Fisher will do the same. I don't know. Dan Mullen didn't win a national championship, though. So we'll see what happens, but I saw that story, thought it was a good tail end kind of thing to the Jon Gruden story. Tell you what, this is what we'll do. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. When we do, a couple more topics from the weekend that I want to get to. Appreciate everybody's support. Fun Sunday night. Again, 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks from today, we'll be reacting to college football. Quick break. Be right back. What's up, everybody? It's AT, and I've told you before, when I'm on the road, when I'm podcasting, sometimes you end up looking like a slob. Look at me, mismatched socks. I'm wearing shorts. What am I doing? The folks at Firebox said, Torres, let's get you some fresh gear to look better when you're on camera. Well, what do you think? This is all part of the spring collection for Firebox. These jeans, perfect when I want to go to games, casual, serious, business casual, you name it. Got the quarter zip. And oh, by the way, we got this perfect zip. This is the perfect spring, summer zip that you can wear when you're out with friends. Maybe it gets a little chilly. Maybe it's a little chilly in the morning. Perfect for all occasions. So this is what I need you to do. If you like what you see, and you should, what I need you to do is visit Firebox.com. That's Firebox.com, F-I-O-B-O-C. By the way, Firebox has a special promo code for listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Use promo code Torres and get 20% off your purchase. Thank you again to Firebox. By the way, make sure that you're following them on social media at Firebox, F-I-O-B-O-C. Thank you, Firebox. All right, everybody. I am back. Good to be back. Final segment of the show. So good to be back. Do want to go ahead and wrap with some other news and notes. I'm looking at nobody's last comments. Torres, don't make vids with, I don't know, what's his face. Nobody is, he's on one today. Anyway, all right, I'm back. Good to be back. Good to be back. Final segment of the show. So good to be back. Gonna wrap. Producer Matt, if there's a couple interesting questions, we'll get to those. Before we do, though, you know what I want to get to? I want to get to a bag of my favorite healthy snack. Our friends, our partners, people, I'm talking Cauli Puffs. That's right. We've discussed Cauli Puffs with you for about a year now. Family-owned company, not far from where I live. It's that time of year. Summer is coming to an end, but you still want to look good when you get these last couple weeks at the pool. So what do you need? A snack that is both healthy but delicious, something you'll love, something your kids will love, something your grandkids will love, something your grandparents will love. You need Cauli Puffs. Baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients, but darn it, do they taste delicious. That's the best part, right? You don't need the crap in the grocery aisle. You don't need the Doritos and Fritos. You need a snack that is just as healthy or just as tasty, but way more healthy. That's these guys right here. That's Cauli Puffs. For more information and for a special discount, because darn it, you're a listener to the Aaron Torres pod. This is all you need to do. Go to CauliPuffs.com. That's CauliPuffs.com. CauliPuffs.com. You can get a 15% discount when you use promo code Torres. We have a special offer just for listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. CauliPuffs.com, promo code Torres to get 15% off any purchase. You can purchase 10 times in a week if you want. CauliPuffs.com, promo code Torres. Cauli Puffs also available on Amazon. You obviously can't get the discount there. CauliPuffs.com, promo code Torres. We appreciate your support. Andrew says the spicy flavored Cauli Puffs are great. Not going to lie. Big L for Torres because they, hate to brag, they sent me a box over the weekend. I should have the big bag here showing America just how good these freaking things are. CauliPuffs.com, promo code Torres. We'll get the bag on screen next time. We appreciate your support. And Andrew, thank you for your support of the Aaron Torres pod and Cauli Puffs. Outside of Andrew's amazing comment, let's go ahead and get to a couple things from the chat. Again, nobody is all over the place. He's our resident lunatic. But, Matt, do we have a question or two before we get to the show wrap? Okay. Steven talking about Arkansas and Gruden. He said, you hit the nail on the head with the identity thing. That's what a lot of fans around here that I've talked to is, who are we? What is our identity? Arkansas's identity is inconsistency. Listen, Steven, I never speak for a fan base. I'm just talking about what I see from a distance, but I'm glad that I nailed it on the head because to me, and by the way, I think that's the most frustrating thing about anything in life. It could be your football team, your basketball team, your marriage, your kids, whatever. Are you getting the same thing every day, right? If your wife's not a morning person, if your husband's not a morning person, you don't bother them in the morning. But if some mornings they're happy and whatever, and then the next morning they're yelling and screaming or giving you the stink eye, that's when you're like, what am I supposed to do here? And that's how I feel about Arkansas football is that, again, go back to last year, Tennessee game. Defense was amazing. We all watched it. We all saw the celebration. Arkansas fans, you deserve it. Then Ole Miss comes to town, you give up 63 points. So it's like, I don't know what I'm getting from them week to week. I don't know what their identity is. And again, it's just, are you the portal team? Are you the high school team? Are you the developmental team? Are you the defense first team? Are you the offense first team? Listen, I think you can argue that pretty much everybody in the SEC to some degree has an identity, right? Even, give me an example. Oklahoma. Defense was, people forget this, defense was top 20 last year. The offense was just abysmal. They have to improve the offense. Okay, you can go into an offseason saying this is what I have to improve. Ole Miss, they're the portal team. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but you know what you're going to get day in, day out, week in, week out. Most of your recruiting is going to be done when the portal opens in the middle of December. With Arkansas, I don't know what it is on a day-to-day basis. And listen, I can't promise that Jon Gruden would bring it, but would he bring excitement? Yeah, he absolutely would. Anything else, Producer Matt, before we get to the final segment of the show? Cletus. So Cletus says what a lot of people have told me when I tweeted about the Hunter Yurachek thing, or with the Jon Gruden thing. He said, that's my biggest concern is Hunter Yurachek. He seems to be content with Pittman, and even if he does fire Pittman, he might not even contact Jon Gruden. So a couple quick thoughts on that. One, I thought it was really interesting. First of all, that was the number one response to the original tweet, because I put out a tweet when I saw the video, and people said, Hunter Yurchek isn't even going to reach out, or he wouldn't know what to do, or he'd screw it all up. You guys know better than I do, but I think we all understand that probably when John Calipari came to Arkansas, I don't know that Hunter Yurchek was the main one that made that deal work. I think we all know John Tyson played a big role. The other thing, Cletus, that cracks me up, I saw somebody say this today on Twitter. It was an Arkansas fan, so it's not like it was like a reporter or anything, but they were like, we have a season to play. We should not be reaching out to John Gruden. No, you should be reaching out right now. Like if I was Hunter Yurchek and I saw that video, first of all, it's my job to know before I see that video. But if I'm Hunter Yurchek, I'm on the phone with Gruden today, if not yesterday. And you know what I would do? This is not trying to be disrespectful of Sam Pittman. I would be on a plane to wherever Gruden is to have lunch with him tomorrow. Because what's the worst that can happen? Doesn't work out. He's not interested, whatever. This is assuming Gruden wants to speak with you. But Gruden wants to coach. He wants to coach in the SEC. There's only 16 of those jobs, and I think realistically there's only 1 or 2 that could open. I think Cletus' second point is kind of a scary one. Well, actually, it's the first point, because that's what Curtis Wilkerson said on the show the other day, is that you look at the situation with Arkansas, because I asked him, I said, Curtis, where is Arkansas going to be 6 months from now, say January 1 of 2026? And he said, look, I think there's probably a very reasonable chance that Sam Pittman is still the head coach. So listen, I can't speak for why Hunter Yurchek acts the way he does. The only job of an AD, frankly, pick the right football coach and get the hell out of the way. Even at a school that loves basketball like Arkansas, it's like the priority still should always be football because of the revenue that football creates. So drives me freaking crazy. And I'm not rooting against Sam Pittman. I just want to, last time, I know I've said it 4 times. I'm not rooting against Sam Pittman. I'm just saying, like, at some point, if you can't get the job done, get somebody who can, get somebody who wants the job. Cletus, I think, brings up a couple really good points about the status of things with Arkansas. Producer Matt, anything else before we put a bow on this? Arkansas fan here. I feel like if Pittman is gone, Petrino will be gone also. Petrino himself has said he does not want to be a head coach anymore. No firsthand knowledge on this. I don't think Petrino wants to be head coach. I think he's in the role that he enjoys, which is calling plays, running an offense. Being a head coach is a lot right now in college football. And like, what is Petrino now? 62, 63? I think he is in the role that he enjoys. And by the way, there's a lot of people like that. Gus Malzahn's like that. Gus Malzahn was like at one, and producer Matt would get in on it. Is that Gus Malzahn, I think, he didn't enjoy what college football had become, and he just wanted to call plays and design offenses. And so now he's the offensive coordinator at Florida State rather than the head coach at UCF. Like, I think that's how he wants to spend his time as a dude in his 60s. He doesn't want to have all the responsibility of being a head coach. And I think Bobby Petrino is the same. Producer Matt, I assume we're good at this point. Anything else before we switch gears? All right. I just want to get to one more topic. No, we do not talk a ton of NFL on this show, but I got to talk very quickly about the biggest NFL story of the weekend, Shedeur Sanders. And it was interesting because I was actually on air on Fox Sports Radio during Shedeur Sanders' debut. And so if you listen to this show, and by the way, we're not going to be breaking down NFL games on this show. It's still August 10th. Okay. We don't have a ton of breakdown, so don't worry. You're not going to tune in on a random Sunday going forward, and I'm just going to be talking, Tennessee Titans too deep or anything like that. But Shedeur was the biggest story of the weekend, is probably the biggest story of the preseason. And we talked about it last week, and I hate to brag, but I kind of sort of nailed how things went down. Now, listen, as I said, let me even backtrack. Okay, so last week we talked about Shedeur getting the opportunity to start. And what I said at the time, I said, look, I don't know what happened during the draft process. I don't care what happened during the draft process. But let's put aside our personal opinions, whether you like them, whether you hate them. Let's just talk facts. He was the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. He threw for 37 touchdowns a year ago. He completed 74% of his passes. He took a team that won 1 game the year before he got there to 9 wins by his second season at Colorado, okay? I keep saying, this guy's not Bronny James. This is not a guy who is only in the NFL because of who his dad is. He is a guy that many people saw as a first-round pick as recently as the week of the NFL draft. So I had high expectations for Shedeur coming into this weekend. And I got to say, he wasn't perfect. And I know everyone's going to say, oh, you're overreacting. But you saw about everything you could have wanted if you were a Browns fan. If you watched Friday night, it was great entertainment. But Shedeur Sanders going into Carolina, and I understand he's not playing against, the best defense in the history of football. But as you can see on the screen, 14 of 23 passing, 138 yards, 2 touchdown passes, 19 yards rushing. Was it the greatest performance in the history of the NFL? No. Should we start creating his bust for Canton? No. But we talked about it. I did a little bit of a standalone clip on Saturday. I want to dive into it more because I think there is so much misperception about this and what it means. And I just think it's bigger than people are giving it credit for. And by the way, I think we even saw some stuff this weekend that bodes well for Shedeur in the bigger picture. Bottom line is this. If you watch, first of all, you can't say it doesn't matter for 2 reasons. One, if you watch the game, don't just be a box score watcher. If you watch the game, he was actually pretty good. He wasn't perfect, but 14-23, 2 touchdowns. And by the way, anybody who's telling me it doesn't matter, if he was 7 of 23 with no touchdowns and 2 interceptions, then guess what? You'd be telling me how much he sucked today, okay? So you can't say that it doesn't matter. But I thought he really looked about as good as you really could have expected in that preseason game. Wasn't perfect, but I thought he kind of did everything that you wanted to see. He hit some short passes. He obviously had the 2 touchdown passes. He made the smart play seemingly every play, hit some short passes, hit a couple deep balls, took off and ran for a first down once or twice. I thought there was even a play. It was, I think, in the 3rd quarter maybe, where he was deep in his own territory and it was like 3rd and 16 or something. He was backed up on his own goal line. And rather than trying to make some hero play, he just dumped it down to pick up about like 8-10 yards, didn't get a first down, but he gave his punter room to punt, and they flipped the field and they scored a touchdown on the next drive. And so, listen, there's people on the internet that are going to tell, oh, this doesn't mean anything. Again, I'm not saying we have to put his bust in can, but it absolutely means something for a few different reasons, okay? First of all, he is a 5th-round pick. And I don't care what happened, how it happened, how he got there, what it means, whatever, is that 5th-round picks don't always get an opportunity. And when you get that drafted that late in the NFL, it's not just about are you good enough, it's about are you even going to get an opportunity. And by the way, we talked about this the day after the draft. That was why I loved the Browns drafting him in the first place, is because it was one of the few spots where he can actually, if he's good enough, get on the field this year. If he got drafted by, Will Howard got drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Unless Aaron Rodgers, God forbid something happens to Will Howard's not getting on the field. Riley Leonard got drafted by the Indianapolis Colts. Unless something crazy happens, he's the 3rd-string quarterback. Well, Shedeur ended up in a place where he could conceivably get on the field, but it still came down to whether he was going to get an opportunity or not, and was he going to take advantage of it? And to his credit, he got on the field, he got the opportunity, he took advantage. And so to me, yes, this absolutely positively matters, because there's a lot of 5th, 6th-round picks that aren't going to get the opportunity that he got. I take it a step further. He clearly did something good because Kevin Stefanski kept him in until the 3rd quarter. Now, you could sit there and say, well, Dylan Gabriel's hurt and Kenny Pickett's hurt. Okay, I get it, but Tyler Huntley's not hurt. Tyler Huntley was in uniform, and Tyler Huntley just got to camp a week ago. And so if Kevin Stefanski thought that Tyler Huntley was a legitimate option or that Shedeur was not, they could have pulled Shedeur much quicker than they did. This was not just we're doing a favor to somebody. This was, we're giving him a shot to prove he belongs, and he absolutely did. And so to me, what has been interesting is, one, there's the social media response, which is mostly negative. But I've seen some interesting things that have really caught my attention. As a matter of fact, producer Matt, you can go ahead and pop up the tweet that I sent you because I think this is really noteworthy. So Jordan Schultz NFL Insider, works for Fox, he put out a tweet that he said, from a high-ranking AFC North executive, I didn't even see that it was an AFC North, but anyway, he said, it's early, but wow, I'm actually shocked at how good Shedeur looks. Now, first of all, let me say this. Whoever this AFC North executive is, was not doing his job. Because if you had no idea how good Shedeur was, that's kind of on you. Because as I said, Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, 37 touchdown passes, and I tweeted that as well. If you just didn't evaluate him, if you just didn't evaluate him because you didn't like the attitude, and I'm not saying he has an attitude, I'm just saying that's the reports, that's one thing. But the notion that you didn't know how good he was, you're not doing your homework. So it's kind of proof, by the way, that half the league wasn't even paying attention or didn't care or whatever. But you know what that's also proof of me too, is two things. Is one, is you got proof that that he's impressing people. And I think one, the proof is in the fact that he had this opportunity, he took advantage of it. And so I think this is nothing but great news for Shedeur because one, I think most importantly, he basically gave the Browns a reason to not only give him another chance, but I think he's going to start moving past people up the depth chart. But two, and we'll get to kind of the big picture in a second, but two, and this is where I think it's important because to me, I think what he proved on Saturday or Friday is even if it somehow doesn't work out, even if he somehow doesn't stay in Cleveland, and by the way, if Cleveland lets him go after this for whatever reason, they're an even more dysfunctional franchise than I realized. But Shedeur impressed some people on Friday night, and Shedeur probably has some believers now that he did not a week ago, 10 days ago, 5 days ago, 3 days ago. And so this was so much bigger than we realize and so much more important for Shedeur's trajectory. Now, a couple of things. One, it's on him to build on this. It's on him. The Browns play again on Saturday. I would assume he's going to get more reps. I would assume he's getting more snaps. Joe Flacco ain't playing. We know that. He's 40 years old. Deshaun Watson's hurt. So I don't know what Kenny Pickett's status is, what Dylan Gabriel's status is, but whatever opportunity you get, you have to build on this. But it also proves to me what I have been saying since before the draft. I absolutely believe that Shedeur is good enough. I believe he is good enough to be an NFL quarterback and an NFL starter as a quarterback as well. You can disagree. I'm just telling you what I saw with my own two eyes. 37 touchdown passes, 74% completion percentage. Wasn't perfect. Nobody is in college football. But I think he proved that he belongs. I think he proved, by the way, that if something goes wrong in Cleveland, somebody else is going to be interested. And now it's, can he take advantage of it and continue to build on it? I'll stand by what I said on draft night. I said on draft night, the show that we did after the draft, I said that I truly believe that he is going to be a starter at some point in Cleveland this season. Joe Flacco is going to be week one, but Joe Flacco's 40 years old. Joe Flacco is not making it through 17 weeks of NFL football. And so the question is, can you prove that you're better than Kenny Pickett and Dylan Gabriel? I think he did. He's got to build on it. My prediction, August 10th, 2025, I think he starts some games this year. See, the best quarterback ever? Probably not. I mean, if he was, it'd be quite a story. But I think he's going to be really good. I think we got proof, definitive proof, that he was overlooked in the draft process and that some teams are starting to realize that they made some mistakes. However, he ended up on the Browns. I still think it was a Jimmy Haslam thing more than it was a Stefanski and Andrew Berry thing. Doesn't really matter. Had a chance, took advantage of it. Producer Matt, I'm guessing since the segment started, probably no real new questions or comments. Let's see here. Got to feel happy for the Browns fans. Finally, something to be happy about, says Cletus. The interesting thing, too, and I was working with Ephraim Salam, a multi-year NFL vet, during my show on Friday night on Fox Sports Radio. One, it was interesting because he was a player that was drafted in the 7th round. He was a player that it basically came down to the last, final day. It's either him or another guy. It ends up being him. He ends up playing in the NFL for 13 years. But Ephraim brought up an interesting point. How often have you ever seen a jersey of a 5th round pick in the stands? Probably never. And certainly for a preseason. Now, obviously, Dak is in year 3 or Tom Brady's in year 4 and he's won a Super Bowl. That's a different conversation. But I'm talking about in the preseason after they were drafted. Have you ever seen the jersey of a 3rd, 5th, 7th, 6th round pick, whatever? The other thing was the game was in Carolina, and I saw a bunch of Shedeur jerseys. I saw a bunch of Colorado gear. So really cool moment. Happy for Shedeur. Now, like I said, just got to go ahead and build on this. All right. I'll tell you what. Anything else? Oh, Andrew, preseason over-under win total picks. Okay. I'm not going to spoil this. Late next week, producer Matt and I will be in Vegas. Can't say why. There's some good stuff coming. We will earmark that show. We're going to probably do show Thursday, Friday of next week. We have a couple big announcements in the next week or two, and I'll give out my official over-under picks for this season. I believe my over-under football picks went 4-1 last year. By the way, we do our college football betting pod as well. You can always subscribe there. Tell you what, though. Do think we are going to go ahead and get out of here. We appreciate everybody's support, and it is time for me to get out. Actually, one more comment that I see that's cracking me up. Tyler Shuck out here throwing a pick 6. So funny story on that, Cletus. Again, I was hosting on Friday when Shedeur was playing. We took some phone calls, and one guy says, man, I'm in New Orleans. I was hoping with our first pick we'd take Shedeur. When we didn't take him with our first pick, I was hoping we'd take him with the second pick. And he said, I was so mad. And I said, well, the good news is, here's the good news. You got, instead of getting Shedeur, you got the 7th-year quarterback who had one good year of college football. Really 2. But other than that, Tyler Shuck, 7 years, 25 years old. I'm sorry. If you can't do it by about 23 or 24 at the college level, I'm not sold that you can do it. That was one of the most dumbfounding picks to me. I just didn't get it. All right, I'll tell you what. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. Really appreciate everybody. Let's see here. Oh, we got a couple more comments than I thought. Paul is back. Paul's a huge football fan, always supports the show during football season. Totally get it if you're not a basketball fan. We've gone pretty heavy on the basketball side of things the last couple months. But Paul says 2 destinations for the groomer rumors. Florida, if Florida goes backwards again. You know, I'll just say this on Florida. I find them interesting. Certainly, the schedule is insane. I don't know what to make of Florida because we don't know DJ Lagway's health, okay? And so my question is, like, if DJ Lagway's just hurt and Florida stinks again, can you pin that on Billy Napier? You could say, well, he didn't have a backup quarterback. How are you going to have a backup quarterback when DJ Lagway's your starter? So that's my concern with Florida is, and we've talked about it, I just don't think DJ Lagway has proven he can stay healthy. Was in a boot a few weeks ago. I know he's practicing, but had a shoulder injury during the spring, had a hamstring injury last year. We can't prove that he can stay healthy. And so if he can't stay healthy in spring practice, how is he going to stay healthy for a 12-game season? So to me, like if you're Billy Napier and you go 6-6, but you only have DJ Lagway for 4 games, I mean, how can you be evaluated on that? I don't know. I appreciate you tuning in, Paul. Billy Napier is another one. I'd put him in the Brent Venables, Hugh Freeze category. I don't think that seat is quite as hot as people think because, again, you fire Billy Napier, guess what? DJ Lagway is entering the portal. So, but I think to your point, that would be a spot for Gruden, who, of course, is in Tampa, not far from where Gainesville is as well. All right, going to go ahead and get out of here. Chat was humming today. Appreciate everybody's support. Glad to see everybody back. We're going to get out of here. As I mentioned, probably, by the way, we'll be back Tuesday. We will also later this week have Phil Steele on the show. So if you have any questions for Phil Steele, you can drop them. Aaron Torres podcast questions at gmail.com. Aaron Torres podcast questions at gmail.com. Anyway, enough chit chat. Let's get out of here. Appreciate everybody's support. I'll see y'all when I see y'all. Tuesday night we'll probably be back. Maybe tomorrow, depending on the news cycle. I know that the AP poll is coming out. And then we'll be back to pretty much like 5 days a week once the season starts. Time to go. Thank you. 2 weeks from today, we will have football to react to, college football. Shout out to Torrent Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick. You F-Ed, unblock me, bro. Shout out Chicken Man, John Tyson, Hunter Yurchek. We're not rooting against Sam Pittman,